Hey, it's your old pal Lucid Stew again, and in this video we're going to be looking at some renderings I did for Brightline West in 2024, and we'll talk a little bit about what's going on with the project now. Just like in the videos, we're going to start off in Rancho Cucamonga, California at the southern end of the route. The Rancho Cucamonga station is located at the current 8th Street station in Rancho Cucamonga off of Milliken. And here, the first rendering we have is of the station kind of gliding through. This was my first interpretation of the station based on older renderings. That has changed a little bit based on newer renderings by the company, and I use those in more recent videos, but we're not talking about those right now. The Rancho Cucamonga Brightline West station would be elevated, and then trains would travel along a mile-long viaduct to reach the Interstate 15 corridor. This would happen at slower speeds, and there would be a pretty tight curve going into Interstate 15, so I wouldn't anticipate a train getting really over more than 45 miles an hour here or something like that, if it's ever built. And once the train transitions from the 8th Street corridor into Interstate 15, it will begin its long journey toward Las Vegas, and most of that will occur in the Interstate 15 right-of-way. Most of that distance will be in the Interstate 15 median, and this is one part of the exception where the right-of-way will travel to the west of Interstate 15 till it reaches Foothill Boulevard in Rancho Cucamonga. And there will be a transition from the west side to the median there. And Brightline West has revealed some renderings of this, which is what I based my rendering on. There will be a large flyover ramp that will facilitate that transition. It will be pretty high too, something like 40 feet above Foothill Boulevard. And all of this would be at slower speed. In terms of figuring out how fast this thing is going to go, we do have reference from some 2024 documents that Brightline West put out with one of their bond sales. And that included a speed chart that Alstom came up with. Ultimately, Brightline West did not pick Alstom to manufacture their trains. They went with Siemens. But, we can base some things around that chart. This right here is the junction of Interstate 15 and State Route 210. This is the first major junction that the train will encounter while in the median. One way Brightline West plans to keep costs down is by moving around existing infrastructure while keeping it in place. They're going to do this various ways. One way is if a overpass, for instance, is too high, they'll dig down into the ground a little bit, and as long as that doesn't interact with foundations, that will be fine. And here we're jumping ahead quite a bit to the junction of Interstate 15 and Interstate 215, and the reason that I'm showing you this part is this is one of the major structures that would have to be started right at the beginning of the project because it would take about 4 years to construct. So here they'll have a major flyover ramp into the median going into Cajon Pass. Cajon Pass is quite the challenge. As you can see, this is a very steep incline. It's supposed to be almost 4.2% at this point near Kenwood Road. This would be the steepest incline on a high-speed rail system in the world. However, that will be topped by Brightline West. And that will occur here at the top of Cajon Pass, where grades will be somewhere in the area of 5.5% to 6%. So this route would exceed the highest grades currently on high-speed rail, which are 4% in Germany, by 2%. Now, if you're not familiar with grade, what that means is for every 100 units of measure horizontally, the route goes up 1 unit. and that's a 1% grade. So 4% very steep for rail. This is going to be 6%. There are railroads that are 6% or greater, but I don't know that really if any of them are conventional wheel on rail. A lot of time for routes this steep, they use something a little bit different that's a little more secure. So going up and down this particular part might be a little hairy as a passenger if they ever build it, and we'll get to that part. My rendering here does vary a little bit from some of the information from the company. So I have the train here elevated by about 15 feet above the roadway, and from various things I've seen, the company seems to indicate that the train will be closer to road level. I don't know that it will be able to be exactly level with the road because of grade variations. Okay, now we're up in the high desert and we're approaching the Hesperia station. And this is the old design where they had the station to the south of the freeway, and then the platforms were in the median. And that was north of Joshua Street. And then they had this staircase coming down from Joshua Street onto the platforms. One thing to keep in mind is that renderings are not reality and project plans do change, so these renderings are based on an older Brightline West plan. That's been changed. Now the station is supposed to be on the upper portion of the screen here. The platforms will still be in the median, but about a quarter mile south of where they are in this rendering. Things have changed quite a bit, but they're still kind of similar too. This is still the same general area where the Hesperia station would be. The Hesperia station is meant to be a commuter station. It would only receive 3 trains in the morning and 3 trains in the evening. Most Brightline West trains would bypass this station. I also have the station double tracked in this case, and their most recent plans are for it to be single track. All right, now jumping ahead again, we are in Victorville, going down to the Mojave River. And this is where the train will cross the Mojave River. So construction here would demand that the bridge be widened, which is probably one of the more involved portions of the entire route. And here behind us, I have the High Desert Corridor Mojave River Gorge Bridge put in there for fun. We'll see if that ever gets built. And then once across the Mojave River, we would continue on out of Victorville to the north. This is a little further to the north, coming into the Victor Valley station from the south. Here, the route in the I-15 median would cross Cemex tracks that are currently running over the freeway. One possibility of how to do that would be a viaduct like this over them. Another is to reconfigure the Cemex tracks, but then you have to get cooperation from Cemex, and who knows what would happen there. So, but it could go either way, and they have not updated their plans as far as the public is concerned since 2024. So it's really not clear what they plan to do. The Victor Valley Station site is also going to be home to a maintenance of way facility. I have speculated here on location and size of this, but it will be located somewhere on their approximately 300-acre property out there. Okay, so why does Brightline West have 300 acres out in the middle of the stinking desert out here? The answer to that is this is part of their transit-oriented development plans. A separate branch of these Brightline West entities would develop a portion of the extra acreage around the station, presumably driven by the station location's commercial and residential draw. So the renderings I have here are based on official renderings by the company and some various other drawings and designs that I have access to, that everyone has access to. It will be in the median. You'll get to it from a tunnel that goes under the freeway to the station location that's a little bit to the east of the freeway. Now we're in Barstow, still in the median. I may as well stop saying that. The train will be in the median almost the entire way. The exception to that would be the 34 miles in Nevada, which will be mostly on the east side of the freeway. And here the train will go up on a very large viaduct through Barstow. The reason for this viaduct is to cross over both Main Street and the BNSF Southern Transcon right here. The viaduct will be about 4,000 feet long. If you're familiar with California high-speed rail, this is about as long as anything California high-speed rail has built to this point. And then I keep the route a little bit elevated here until it reaches the hill on the other side of the Mojave River. But in reality, the plan is to bring it back down to freeway level pretty much as soon as it gets over the Southern Transcon. And in this shot, we're in the Uramo area, which is a little bit north of Barstow. From Southern California to Las Vegas, this portion would probably be the first true high-speed part. Speeds could be as high as 200 miles per hour. This is a relatively straight part that's about 20 miles long. And then ultimately that has to slow down because it leads into a slower passing section that runs through the Cronies Valley just after this part. So Brightline West's current deal is that they are in financial trouble. The project cost has ballooned to $21 billion or more, and basically they have not found a way to get the extra money that they're going to need. Right now that's contingent on a federal loan that they may or may not get. Past the Cronies Valley is the city of Baker. Baker is a small service town between Death Valley National Park and Mojave National Preserve or Reserve or whatever it's called. Here the train's going to slow a bit because there is a small jog in the freeway before it runs up the Halloran grade, which is over 4%. Once beyond the Halloran grade and Halloran summit, the train would be in Shadow Valley. Shadow Valley is another potentially very fast portion. As you can see, the route here is arrow straight. There are some grades to deal with, but in this case, from the south to the north, the train would be going downhill, so potentially could reach top speed. The Alstom chart has it at something like 180 miles per hour. One feature of Shadow Valley is the Valley Wells rest area, and that if Brightline West ever gets built, that will be a place where you can sit and watch the train pass you by at near top speed, which you really can't say about too many other areas. And then past that, the train will climb the hill up to Mountain Pass, which is the highest point on the line at about 4,700 feet above sea level. And to reach that will be another grade that is very nearly 4%. So a lot of steep grades on this. Beyond Mountain Pass and another slow passing section is the Ivanpah Valley and the State Line area. Now here I have the train going about 150 miles per hour relative to everything else in the scene. The Alstom survey has the train at top speed here. So even though it wouldn't be going full speed for very long, because it's not a very great distance, only about 5 or 6 miles here, this is another place where the train could be 200 miles per hour. And then once the train crosses the Ivanpah Lake bed here, it would enter into Nevada and pass through Primm, Nevada, which is, well, it used to be a gambling town, but now it's closed down. And then after a significantly long, fast section through Nevada, the train would get to Sloan. And Sloan is the site of the Vehicle Maintenance Facility and Operations Facility. And that would be accessible from the interstate median by this spur here. And this is where all the trains would be kept overnight. This is where they would originate from each morning for service. And run through the train wash and be worked on by mechanics and all that good stuff. Speed here would be fairly slow because the train has to slow down quite significantly coming into the Las Vegas area. And that is because the train through Las Vegas is going to run in a very narrow corridor next to the freeway, and they anticipate speeds being about 60 or 70 miles an hour once the train gets into that space. To get to that space, the train will need to transition out of the median, and it will do that by traversing a large box viaduct structure. And this is going to be similar to structures that have been built in the Central Valley for California high-speed rail. In those cases, the train is transitioning from one side of BNSF tracks to the other. In this case, the train will transition from the median of Interstate 15 to the east side of Interstate 15. And once again, there's not really any necessity for this to be a quick transition because the train will likely only be traveling at about 60 or 70 miles per hour right here anyway. And then a little further down the line near Blue Diamond Road, like I said before, the train will be moving in a narrow corridor that's really just large enough for the track and the catenary. And that will be between the existing development and the freeway right away. That will be single tracked. The last 6 miles into the station area will be single track, and that is a bottleneck, but that's not something they really need to worry about until they're carrying something like 11 million passengers a year if they build it. So one thing I got wrong on these renderings was the transition from the interstate into the station. And here I have the train going up over a viaduct over Blue Diamond Road, and what they're actually planning to do is drive a box culvert under Blue Diamond Road here. So the train would go under the road here and not over it. So that is a mistake on my part at this point. That information was not available when I made these renderings, so it was an assumption, and then I got some clarity on that a little bit later. And then finally the train would pull into the station. Another thing that's wrong here about the station is that I have platforms on either side of the dual tracks. In reality, they're planning on an island platform that would be surrounded by a track on either side. Otherwise, I got the station as close to the renderings that they've provided as I could with the tools that I had available at the time. And with that, we've made it to Las Vegas from Southern California in about 2 hours and 10 minutes, 3 miles from the very south end of the strip. I hope you enjoyed this look at the renderings I did for this a couple of years ago and the update on what's going on with Brightline West. That's all for now. Until next time, I'll see you on that big, beautiful freeway.